You'll get to see a list of our calendar for corporate trainings. We also have a segment for kids money. So this segment is for kids who are specifically in primary school. We talk about leadership, entrepreneurship, budgeting, discipline. We have a whole array of topics. We also have another catalog or product called Chanuka, which is specifically meant for the youth. So these are people in university or college or who are done with high school. So we talk about entrepreneurship, how they can look at the future, which courses are ideal to venture into. So if that is even remotely interesting to you, you can send your nephews, nieces, neighbors, sons and daughters to either of our programs. The one for Ichanuka, it's meant for youth. The one for Kids Money is meant for kids. And the numbers are growing in both the program, so you will not want to miss out. Or yeah, and for most of us who are working, we have our normal training calendar. Feel free to visit our website and look at it. We have programs to do with audit, finance, IFRS, managing office conflicts, HR, and a lot more. So I see we were uh, it's 12:06. So I'd like us to start today's session. And if anything I've said before is of interest, you can type one in the chat and I'll send you a link for easier registration and booking. Thank you. Over to you, Salonka.
Thanks, Moses, for that. I think we will start right away. So again, welcome everyone to today's presentation on genius entrepreneurship lessons from the pandemic. I think this is a topic that we all have information about, since this is the pandemic is something that affected or impacted all of us on a personal level, in terms of work and also in terms of business. So this is a quite relatable topic to all of us, and the lessons to entrepreneurs will be of help to all of us. So Moses, just confirm, in case of questions, one should write it on the chat box, or what's how to go about it?
Yes, in case you have a burning question, you can write it in the chat box. And I'm sure as you'll be presenting, you'll have sessions where you might ask, hey, so far, do you have any question? And
Yes.
when you get there, someone might consider just unmuting and asking you a question.
Okay, thanks for that.
And at the end, we'll have a QA session.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay.
So going straight to the contents of today's webinar, where we will do just a basic introduction on the webinar, look at the number of impacts that were brought about by the pandemic, which will go ahead to the entrepreneurship lessons that we learned from that. Then we can conclude and have a Q&A session. Um, as we understand, 2019 is when the pandemic started in China, which expanded, or rather grew, and started affecting Africa, where a number of countries started to shut down. As for Kenya, we did that on 20th March 2020. A lot of things were, schools were closed, a number of businesses restrictions were put, but despite all those measures, which had put restrictions on businesses, entrepreneurs around the world had to cope up and come up with strategies to adapt and thrive in such moments. So this webinar will just explore the number of few lessons that we learn from the resilience, innovations, just the response that entrepreneurs gave to COVID-19. Uh, because if we start, the pandemic's impact. The pandemic brought about a number of impacts listed as on your screens, but not limited to that. there were lockdowns and business closures almost all over the world. A number of countries had total lockdowns and others had partial lockdowns, which which affected entrepreneurs in terms of delivering their products and services to their customers, which therefore called for new ways to actually deliver your products and services to your ideal customers. So governments worldwide implemented the lockdown restriction, lockdown and the restrictions to prevent the spread of the virus. Through that, as we know, there was hospitality, travel, and entertainment sectors were really affected since tourists could not be able to visit freely as they used to do before the pandemic, just because to limit the spread of the virus. So countries such as Kenya, with very whose hospitality and tourism sector contributes largely to the GDP, since we have a number of hotels, many national parks, a lot of tourist sceneries outside parks. We have beaches. Looking at all those resources, there are entrepreneurs who do business behind each of those resources. If it's in the beach, there are guys who have hotels, there are guys who supply foods. So looking at it, the hospitality, specifically the hospitality and tourism sector, looking at it, there are ripple effects to even the agricultural sector, since these tourists needed food and the food is supplied from guys in the agriculture sector. So again, those are entrepreneurs being affected by that. Then we went ahead to supply chain disruptions. Again, there were a number of hurdles in terms of importation, uh, for even for partial lockdowns in Kenya, where the metropolitan region was actually under lockdown, and people from up country could not access it easily. Even for food suppliers, there were a number of restrictions that were there. There were a number of things that they are supposed to adhere to for them to supply things to the metropolitan area. So that also affected the supply chains. But ideally, on global supply chain disruptions, it's really shown that through the increase in inflation that was um, actually seen from the pre-pandemic level and the inflation rise during the pandemic. So that was an impact that the pandemic brought, which led to shortages of basic commodities such as food, delays in production, since people, for example, if people were dependent on raw materials from China, the Chinese government had put a number of restrictions on that. So you get delayed or inadequate raw materials, which affect your manufacturing processes, which calls for increased costs since you're operating under capacity. The COVID-19 also brought about a lot of economic uncertainty. So, whereby there was instability, no one knew when this situation will come down. The ministry was putting its effort to just ensure that it is managing it. Then again, looking at it in terms of investors were able to hold their investments because of the uncertainty that was there and the challenges that were facing some of their portfolio businesses. So you find that entrepreneurs, even the big private equity firms that maybe fund healthcare in African countries, that fund maybe investments in the agricultural sector, they had to hold it just to see and try to monitor the pandemic situation and come up with a proper strategy to actually invest in that. There were also health and safety measures. The actually companies had to others reduced the number of employees, then others they made them to shifts, so you cannot work from office past a certain number in terms of the employees. Then in terms of putting the healthcare safety measures, people had to, you know, include in their budgets things like sanitizers, etc., uh, just to ensure that they are able to manage this situation. So those are just some of the impacts that were brought about by the pandemic. And in all these impacts, there are still businesses which managed to thrive. There are still entrepreneurs who manage to uh, get good margins from their businesses and offer sustainable solutions to their customers. So we'll just go ahead and see the number of lessons that we can be able to get from that situation. And the first one goes going without saying is adaptability. Most of the businesses were able to adapt. And at that case, if you are not able to adapt, then your business model will be ruled out of business. Um, just the first thing is the remote work transition. Many businesses had to introduce the remote work models whereby they made use of video conferencing tools such as Teams, Zoom, etc., where they used cloud services to maintain productivity. Yeah, so you find that if if businesses didn't make use of online workstations such as Microsoft Office 365 and others, which are able to provide tools that will enable the entrepreneurs or people working with the entrepreneurs the ability to complete their work as required while on remote locations. So that is one major thing which was seen. Most of this was really taken up highly by client-facing businesses such as consulting, financial services, even in audits. They had to develop online data rooms to be able to just be able to execute their work, although on remote locations. We were also able to see an e-commerce expansion where most traditional brick and mortar retailers rapidly expanded their online presence to reach customers who now shop from home. Because looking at this, most people were at home. So social media really became a big thing during COVID-19 because it's the only space where people had to interact because physical interactions were restricted just to monitor the spread of the virus. So social media became an integral part. Most businesses tried to join online and try to sell their businesses. Looking at it on a global perspectives, companies like Walmart had even to acquire other companies on which are good on blockchain just to combine the synergies so that Walmart can be able to sell their things online. Looking at local businesses, that is when Jumia, um, Glovo, um, Kilimall, even Amazon, they really gained traction during that time because you could just make your orders while you're from home and they get delivered to you. So even small businesses try to enhance their e-commerce platforms, most of them making use of Facebook pages, making use of Instagram pages. So one of the lessons we should actually learn from this is in terms of adaptability is e-commerce, just trying to see now that we don't have a market in terms of traffic or people who are walking into their shops to buy things, then which solution can they have to just turn around the situation and be able to generate leads and make sales. So the use of e-commerce platforms was one thing that really helped entrepreneurs in that time. So going to other aspects of adaptability was the contactless services, whereby businesses were able to reduce the risk of virus transmission through contactless payment options, curbside pickups, and delivery services. Restaurants, grocery stores, and retailers implemented these measures so that they could be able to sell as well as limit the spread of the virus. Yeah, even that is when Safaricom gained traction in terms of developing the M-Pesa business apps. Then they were giving offers, even if you remember, They were giving actually free services in terms of opening pay bills, just to encourage those small businesses to embrace contactless payments to reduce the spread of the virus. So that was one measure that entrepreneurs took. Um, then in terms of product and service pivots, have businesses adapted their products or services to meet the new demands arising from the pandemic. Distillers shifted to producing hand sanitizers, cloth manufacturers produced masks, and restaurants focused on takeout and delivery. Yeah, so as you understand, there was a rise for the use of hand sanitizers just to control the virus and making sure that surfaces have been sterilized and they're free from the virus. There was also a big requirement for masks, just since it was respiratory, to just prevent the expansion. So some of the entrepreneurs who are dealing with similar things were able to jump and actually leverage on the opportunity to supply these equipment or requirements that were used to just control the virus. So food joints such as Java, all of them were able to embrace the takeout and delivery. They were just able to prepare their foods. Most of them were developing online apps or their e-commerce websites, whereby their customers can be able to just log in and make an order, uh, and these can be delivered to them on a timely basis. On the last aspect of availability, there was an aspect of remote learning solutions. As mentioned, we mentioned in terms of work. So even schools were able to come up with strategies to ensure that learners continue to learn even in their remote locations, just to see that they are not being left, even as other sectors or other countries in the world were able to implement their learning effectively. So universities, primary schools, even some of the high schools came up with e-learning tools to just make sure that learning is going in a seamless way. For universities, universities in Kenya came up with a platform called Kenet. This is where lecturers were able to hold video classes to their students, share their study resources, be able to run online tests to their students. So that was just one example of how adaptable learning institutions were to just ensure learning was continuing. Then on entertainment industry and innovations, and entrepreneurs in this sector were able to find new ways to engage their audiences at home. That is when live performances on YouTube uh, started, streaming services and subscribers, people holding virtual concerts, virtual events, virtual conversations. So that is just one of the way in which entrepreneurs ensured that they are continuing their businesses, even though there is no aspect of being in contact with other people. So on adaptability, those were some of the lessons in the various industries and sectors that entrepreneurs were able to come about to just ensure their businesses are going concern. Then another aspect was digital transformation. We cannot rule out the aspect of digital transformation that was seen during COVID-19. The first thing was digital adoption, where businesses, people, everyone adopted the use of social media just to monitor uh, the changing customer behavior and needs in terms of what they order, the food they require, in terms of how are they doing work remotely. So there's that aspect, which again went to data-driven insights, whereby data analytics gained really traction in almost all sectors in terms of monitoring supply chain efficiency, in terms of operations. It was just a big thing, even in terms of monitoring work and the health of employees. You find that when people used to take COVID vaccines, they were able to be given COVID certificates, which are uploaded in the portal, the government portal. So using data analytics, the professionals in data analytics could link the vaccination status of a person to uh, even their swipe in card for work. So you could try to swipe, or rather, you could try to swipe your work card to just get entry to your office. But if you are not vaccinated, you could not swipe in. That is just a basic example of how data-driven insights were brought there to just ensure that if you are not vaccinated, then that means there was a small risk of you spreading the virus. Yeah, and therefore that's how that aspect of data would bring the linkage. Yeah. Then on customer-centric approach, where companies use digital channels to engage with customers, they personalized their marketing efforts and implemented omni-channel strategies to meet customers where they are. Because looking at this, pre-pandemic, marketing used to be done majorly on events, just direct working and marketing your products to certain people, the traditional way of marketing. But during COVID, that is when most businesses actually realized that it is very important to do customer-centric approach in terms of marketing their products, and this is through online, trying to just have a look at which age bracket uses which social media platform majorly, where they map that Instagram, the target audience is these. This is the between the years and this. So understanding the product for each target audience in each social media channel. In terms of innovation and resilience, entrepreneurs were able to adopt aspects of blockchain, Internet of Things, virtual realities, augmented realities to create new products, services, and business models. I think this was actually seen then, because looking at even video conferencing platforms, Zoom was there before the virus, but it had not really gained traction. But after the pandemic hit, that is when they scaled up their operations. They really improved their security features just to be innovative and resilient to get the most out of that situation. So that was the aspect in terms of digital transformation, which was a major lesson that entrepreneurs learned during the pandemic. Then had mentioned earlier remote work. I would like just to highlight the importance of remote work, which entrepreneurs actually realized during the pandemic. If they are managing a number of employees, remote work was able to come to them in terms of reducing office costs, whereby companies which were losing a number of floors were able to scale down to 1 or 2 floors, since most office workers could be able to work from home. They're also able to reduce the overhead costs of each of the employees in terms of the costs that are associated with employees being in office. They were also able to decrease commuting costs, since when people are working remotely, 1 or 2 people come to the office, and this therefore reduces the commuting costs for the company. Instead of everyone taking a cab and charging it to the company, it reduces the cost of commuting in that aspect. Entrepreneurs were also able to get access to a global talent pool, where they expanded their hiring option, increased diversity. You would find someone doing your website from the UK, another one offering new cloud services from the US. Entrepreneurs were able to diversify what they need in terms of the talent and in terms of sourcing services for the business. There was also an improved work-life balance. Flexible working schedules came about with remote working, and also there was a reduction in commuting stress. Yeah, there's just that stress where you have to travel a distance to get to office. When that time is actually when that time can actually be used to put in work and quality work. So the aspect of flexible schedules brought about work-life balance. Then the remote work also increased productivity, whereby the members had fewer distractions. Working at home, they can be able to focus and concentrate and deliver quality work. Uh, the employees were also able to have a customized work environment, whereby someone can customize their home office in a way that really motivates them and gives them energy to work hard, as opposed to maybe office setups. So these are just some of the lessons that entrepreneurs were able to learn from the pandemic in terms of remote working. But what stood out is in terms of cost, as well as having access to a global talent pool, and having flexible trainings that were able to increase productivity of their workers. We go to resilience, and in resilience, I'll use a case study on the pharma sector, whereby companies such as Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson and Johnson, these are all similar. These are all very familiar names, since they're the companies which were on the ground in terms of generating or rather manufacturing vaccines that were able to manage the spread of the virus. The pharma industry faced intense pressure to develop and distribute COVID-19 vaccines on an accelerated timeline. They were able to adapt in a number of ways, where they collaborated efforts, accelerated clinical trials, innovative vaccine development approaches such as mRNA technology. The ability to adapt to the urgency of the situation contributed significantly to vaccination efforts. Looking at it, these big companies in UK and US, which were on the ground trying to develop the vaccines, they were able to really deploy a lot of funds to learning, or rather research and development R&D costs, to just ensure that enough research is being done to actually see that they're able to get vaccines which had a higher percentage of efficiency. Since most of them were 70%, 80%, but they were really focused and hands-on to put in the resilience and adaptation to just find almost perfect vaccines to limit or rather to curb the spread of the virus. In terms of innovation, I'll use an example or a case study on Peloton, which is a fitness. It's a company that has invested in the fitness industry and offers services on fitness. Their challenge was with gym closures and social distancing measures. Traditional fitness options were really limited, whereby guys can go to the gym, train really hard, with a number of people in the gym, which could not happen since the spread of the virus would have been thrived in such situations. So Peloton, known for its connected fitness equipment, experienced a high demand. So the company capitalized the momentum by expanding its product line, introduced more affordable option, and enhancing digital training platform. They actually introduced an app where users could access a variety of workout that they can do it from home, and they can also order for hardware to actually help them to implement those fitness or rather those workouts. So they were able to widen their customer base by that, trying to get an app, getting fitness challenges to people, be able to sell the hardware that they can use to do their fitness. And by this way, they were able to thrive because, again, during the lockdowns, people used to stay at home, which limited movements. And again, people needed to exercise to prevent obesity or just to have general fitness. So they were able to really capitalize on that by offering tailored services in terms of offering the hardware as well as giving them workout challenges using their app. So this is just a company that demonstrated good innovation to just remain resilient and just to make sure that its businesses are going on even though the COVID pandemic has disrupted their normal way of doing business. So there's also an aspect of supply chain management. This is one thing that was really big even for the politicians when actually inflation really rose. Most people blamed it on COVID-19. Most politicians blamed it on COVID-19. Well, yes, COVID-19 had an impact on supply chain management, whereby global supply chain networks were disrupted in terms of raw materials to Africa, in terms of importing finished products to Africa, in terms of just getting the basic things such as oil, which is really important to get. But when the global supply chain systems are disrupted, it has a ripple effect to the prices of commodities in a country. So businesses that relied heavily on a single source or region for their supplies faced severe disruptions. Therefore, entrepreneurs were able to learn from these that diversifying supply chains by sourcing from multiple suppliers or multiple regions can really help mitigate the impact of unforeseen events. Because for sure, no one foresaw that COVID-19 was coming to happen. Therefore, when entrepreneurs are able to have a list of sources in a diversified way, in terms of they are diversified on the regions where they come from, or they are diversified in terms of the product range they offer, this can really help them at times where there was uncertainty. And it's not only for COVID-19, but for any other pandemic that can face a country whereby you are sourcing. There was also the Russia-Ukraine war, just as an example. Most people who really relied on wheat from Russia and Ukraine, or rather oil from Russia and Ukraine, were really affected by the wars. So you find that you can go short of raw materials for manufacturing your end products just because there is war in Russia and Ukraine. Therefore, diversifying for entrepreneurs, diversifying their source where they get their resources is really important, since at a time of unforeseen events, your businesses can be less affected by sourcing, or rather by lack of raw materials. So there's also an aspect of risk mitigation, having a backup plan. The entrepreneurs were able to learn from COVID-19 that it's really important to have a contingency plan to mitigate any crisis that will face your businesses. So businesses with contingency plan in place were able to respond more effectively. These are plans that outline alternative suppliers, alternative production ways, alternative logistics routes, which were able to help companies both get raw materials for their production as well as deliver their products and services to their target customers. So having a good supply chain management system that is well diversified is really important for entrepreneurs. Then entrepreneurs were able also to learn that there is need to reduce dependency in terms of over reliance to one supplier or one region. As I just gave an example on the Russia-Ukraine war, or even sourcing raw materials only from China, where the virus originated. This can be a bottleneck, and therefore you lack a bargaining power. So diversifying reduces the dependency, giving business more negotiating leverage, and ensuring that there is a constant supply for critical materials for production. Yeah, so supply chain management was actually a really major thing that was affected by the virus, even locally. Yeah. We'll also go to a customer-centric approach, whereby during the pandemic, businesses were actually looking at a customer centric approach of doing things, whereby they were able to put more emphasis on their customers, actually, and their employees, whereby they put safety measures in implementing their strategy to deliver the services and products to their clients. For example, as we mentioned earlier, on contactless payment, whereby companies were able to just come up with contactless payment ways to prevent contact, which again will help their customers from contracting the virus. Other companies put in social distancing measures. This really also had an impact on the logistics sector, remembering that public sector cars were able to carry passengers almost half the number that it used to carry pre-pandemic, just just because of the distancing, so that people cannot get into contact with each other and spread the virus. So there's that aspect where companies or other entrepreneurs in the logistics sector were able to just ensure that they adhere to the social distancing measures to protect their customers from getting the virus. And therefore, these actually shown commitment to safety to their customers. Some companies also ensured there is employee safety, and actually prioritizing the well-being of their employees, which were cutting down, came up with strategies such as having paying them half of their salary during the months where the pandemic was, just to ensure that they still remain in employment and they are able to survive, just not to lose employment because the situation of COVID-19 has happened. So some of the companies and entrepreneurs were actually able to be really customer centric to both their customers as well as their employees. So this shown efforts and even some of the customers remained loyal to just commit to safety. So there's also aspect that entrepreneurs were able to learn from the pandemic. Running sustainable business is really key, because a sustainable business can be able to fight itself out of the pandemic with good strategies. However, business that are not sustainable, when they are met by unforeseen events such as COVID-19, they are always ruled out of business. So there are a number of sustainability lessons in terms of resilience and adaptability. As we mentioned early in the first stage, being adaptable to the current situation is a really important part of sustainability. For your business to remain sustainable, you must be able to adapt with the changing times, because times are really changing in terms of business models, in terms of unforeseen events. So, and these can be even to sectors, because for sectors such as tourism, where there is always it's seasonal, there's a season where there is very high traffic in terms of offering services on tourism and hospitality, or even supplying products to that sector. So you find that there is a season that is high and there is a season that is low. You must really adapt to that and have a good understanding and come up with a sustainable strategy to work with that if you are an entrepreneur dealing in that sector or supplying to that sector. So entrepreneurs should design sustainability strategies that are adaptable to changing circumstances, including resilient supply chain, diversifying revenue streams, and incorporating flexibility into business models to respond and environmental social shifts. Just as an example, during COVID-19, um, ideally before the pandemic, masks, gloves. These were things that could only be gotten from pharmaceutical suppliers. However, as part of adaptability, retail shops and wholesale shops realized that actually things like face masks are things that are really on demand now, since they are used to control the spread of the pandemic. So they started doing that. So retail shops started selling masks, started selling gloves. So they're just trying to respond to the current situation and just leveraging on it, just to diversify their revenue streams on these. So this is one of the way that small businesses or other entrepreneurs were able um, to adapt to the changing environment that was brought about by COVID-19. Another thing that really stood out in terms of sustainability is the leveraging of digital tools. Entrepreneurs actually can leverage on digital tools to ensure sustainability efforts. These including using technology. Recently, with the high increase in the use of artificial intelligence, the AIs, in terms of coming up with solutions. We have seen even those competition in universities, since young entrepreneurs mostly sprout from there, whereby the entrepreneurs are able to use knowledge in artificial intelligence to come up with products that actually increase efficiency, even in farming, in tech, in agriculture, in name all those sectors, in the financial sector. So people are able to come up with products using the digital tools, using AI, to actually solve solutions that are there in in the business world. So leveraging on digital tools is really important for businesses to be sustainable. Another thing is in terms of social responsibility. Um, Actually, social responsibility is really important for entrepreneurs to actually put in their sustainability goals. In fact, some of the companies don't call it social responsibility, but they call it social investment, since it's actually an investment, since there is return from it, because investing, or rather putting your money on corporate social responsibility aspects in terms of supporting schools, the return on that is quality education and better education for the kids. So considering employees, communities, and their environment, so they should do transparent communication and engagement with stakeholders to enhance the company reputation and long-term sustainability. So that is really important. Just to give an example on how companies were able to do that on during the COVID-19, it's on banks. Looking at banks, they were able to scrap the mobile transactions, up to M-Pesa transaction, whereby if you are transacting using, for example, the Equity or KCB app, you were able to transfer money from the app to your M-Pesa without any charge. You're also able to transfer money from your M-Pesa to the bank without any charges. That is just one thing they brought about, just to try cushion people from the impact of COVID-19. So that was one of the aspect of showing some aspect of social responsibility, to just help people get out of that situation. Another thing is on circular economy and resource efficiency, whereby entrepreneurs should embrace principles of circular economy, whereby they should design and manufacture products with which they can be reused, and therefore they can minimize waste. Therefore, if they adapt sustainable practices through their product life cycle, they can be able to reduce their environmental impact and contribute to long-term businesses and sustainability. Again, this topic on ESG has really gained traction on the global floor, whereby companies are encouraged to just show effort and their contribution in reaching to a net zero world. So that is really important also for entrepreneurs. So in terms of the conclusion, we have seen the number of lessons that entrepreneurs learned in terms of adaptability, in terms of being innovative, in terms of digital transformation and making use of online platforms to just sell their products, offer their services to their customers, market themselves, position themselves in terms of getting global talent, etc. Those are lessons that entrepreneurs learned. In terms of supply chain management, whereby we have seen that entrepreneurs learned that they should be able to diversify their supply chain base just in case of unforeseen events, then there is minimal delays and they are affected less. So again, we have seen in terms of remote work, how that entrepreneurs knew that that can reduce the costs in terms of office cost, in terms of overhead cost. Yeah, then also on e-commerce, whereby businesses such as Jumia, Kilimall, Glovo were really able to scale up and try to supply their products to customers who could not be very mobile to actually buy the same products physically. We have also had a look on the customer centric approach of it and the sustainability aspect of it in terms of the lessons that entrepreneurs learned from it. So I think that's it. We have come to the Q&A session, and I would like to see if there are any questions in terms of these lessons learned from the pandemic. Trying to see there are no open questions on the chat box for now, unless anyone has a question in terms, they can just unmute in terms of what we have done. So they can just unmute and have the question, put up the question. So Uh, there are no questions in the count of 3, 2, 1. So thanks very much for attending this event, this webinar. In case of any questions in terms of the entrepreneurship aspect, in terms of COVID-19 resilience, you can be able to contact me, Solonka Kitila, on my LinkedIn. I can be able to respond on it, just in case you get a question after this webinar. So thanks very much, everyone, for attending, and I'd really recommend that we continue attending actually these webinars for Capable, and just to mention that Capable is doing a good work. So back to you, Moses.
Thank you so much. The training has, or the webinar has been very nice. I like the slides, I like the material, and I've learned a lot. Thank you for taking the time to research and present in a good way. And I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Moses. Moses, I think you dropped. Not sure if it's only on my end.
Taking us back to COVID-19 and how business come back again and give us another weapon. Now to all the attendees. Pardon?
No, now you're back. Please continue.
Okay. I was saying thank you so much for taking us through a webinar that took us back to 2019 during COVID 2020. You showed us how businesses became innovative, like Amazon. You've shared that they became profitable during that time, and you gave other examples that were relevant. So from us, we would say thank you for taking the time to research and present in a good way. And I would like to thank all the attendees who attended. Today we are not going to have the link for the certificates. We're going to send them later to your emails directly with your names. So don't be worried. We're going to send them. And that being said, we have concluded the webinar for today. Let us meet next week. Everyone is free to live at liberty. Thank you. And in case you have a burning question, you can consider unmuting and asking.